In 1966, the horsepower war was completely out of control, and that was exactly what buyers wanted, because every American manufacturer seemed to have the same mission: build a car faster than the competition. Some of the names on this list are absolute legends. Others are far less known, but they all had one thing in common: they were absurdly fast for their time. And trust me, more than one of these automobiles would still surprise many modern drivers today. Let's begin. 1966 Chevrolet Corvette. For several years, if you wanted one of the fastest cars in America, there was a very simple answer: buy a Corvette. And in 1966, that answer was more true than ever, because Chevrolet had taken a car that was already fast and installed one of the most brutal engines of the decade. The result was this: a machine designed for one thing: speed. At first glance, it looked different from everything else on American roads. The low-slung body, the sporty proportions, and the aggressive lines made it look like a genuine race car. And for once, appearances weren't deceiving, because under the hood sat the legendary 427 cubic inch big block V8. In its most powerful version, it produced up to 425 horsepower. An incredible figure for 1966. And this is where things become really interesting, because all that power was installed in a car that weighed significantly less than most muscle cars of the era. The result was explosive. The Corvette could accelerate from 0 to 60 miles per hour in approximately 5.3 seconds, and reach a top speed of nearly 150 miles per hour. Figures that made it one of the fastest American automobiles of the year. And that contrast is exactly what made the Corvette so special. Because while many fast cars of the 1960s looked like large family coupes, the Corvette looked exactly like what it was: a true American sports car. It's no accident that it became a legend. It combined power, design, and performance in a way very few automobiles could match. Today, the finest 1966 Corvette, 427 examples, regularly exceed $120,000, while the rarest versions command significantly higher prices. 1966 Dodge Coronet. Some cars were fast. This car was a warning, because in 1966, Dodge had a very clear mission: to prove that nobody built wilder engines than they did. And the Coronet was one of the strongest pieces of evidence. At first glance, it looked like a relatively conventional American coupe: big, solid, and far less exotic than a Corvette. But beneath that appearance lurked one of the most feared engines of the entire decade: the legendary 426 Street Hemi. A 426 cubic inch V8 officially rated at 425 horsepower, although many enthusiasts remain convinced the real number was considerably higher. And this is where things become truly interesting. Because the Coronet wasn't a lightweight sports car. It didn't have a body designed for aerodynamics. It didn't look like a machine built to break records. And yet, it was incredibly fast. It could sprint from 0 to 60 miles per hour in approximately 5.4 seconds, and run the quarter mile in times that very few production automobiles could match in 1966. It looked like an elegant American coupe, but when the light turned green, it transformed into a genuine drag racing machine. It's no coincidence that the Hemi name became one of the most famous in automotive history. It represented an era when American manufacturers were obsessed with building ever faster automobiles. Today, the finest Dodge Coronet 426 Hemi examples regularly exceed $200,000, while the rarest cars bring considerably more at auction. And more than half a century later, it remains one of the most brutal and fastest muscle cars America produced during the 1960s. 1966 Ford Fairlane. This car didn't look like a threat to the big muscle cars, and that was exactly the mistake many drivers made in 1966. Because while other manufacturers relied on flashy styling and massive amounts of chrome, Ford was building something much more dangerous: a relatively discreet car with the heart of a competition machine. That car was the Fairlane. At first glance, it looked like a fairly ordinary American coupe. It didn't have the aggressive image of a Corvette. It didn't have the reputation of a Hemi, and that's precisely why it surprised so many people. But under the hood sat Ford's legendary 427 cubic inch V8, a 7.0-liter engine capable of producing around 425 horsepower, an absolutely impressive figure for the era. And this is where things become interesting, because the Fairlane was smaller and lighter than many of its direct rivals. That allowed it to put all that power to use in an extraordinarily effective way. The result was brutal. It could sprint from 0 to 60 miles per hour in approximately 5.5 seconds, and reach speeds approaching 143 miles per hour, figures that placed it among the fastest American automobiles of 1966. And that contrast is exactly what makes it so special, because it looked like an upgraded family car, yet it was capable of competing with some of the fastest vehicles money could buy that year. Today, the finest Ford Fairlane 427 examples regularly exceed $150,000, while the rarest cars continue to rise in value among collectors. And now, I want to know something. Of the cars we've seen so far, which one would you choose for a race? The sports car-bred Chevrolet Corvette 427, the brutal Dodge Coronet Hemi, or this discreet but incredibly dangerous Ford Fairlane 427? Let me know in the comments. 1966 Chevrolet Chevelle SS. The most surprising thing about this car wasn't its styling, it was how fast it could be. Because when most people saw a Chevelle in 1966, they saw an elegant American coupe. They didn't expect to be looking at one of the most feared muscle cars of the decade. And that was exactly its secret. Beneath a relatively understated appearance, Chevrolet had created a genuine beast. The heart of the SS was the famous 396 cubic inch big block V8, a 6.5-liter engine that, in its most powerful form, produced up to 375 horsepower. But this is where things become really interesting, because the Chevelle combined that power with a more compact size than many of the large American coupes of the era. The result was an extraordinarily effective power-to-weight ratio, and when it was time to accelerate, it proved it. It could reach 60 miles per hour in approximately 6 seconds, and exceed 137 miles per hour at the top end, figures that placed it among the fastest American automobiles available in 1966. And that contrast is exactly what turned the SS 396 into a legend. Because it looked like an elegant everyday car, yet it hid performance capable of competing with some of the biggest names of the muscle car era. It also offered something many rivals couldn't match: versatility, and it remained perfectly usable as a daily driver. It's no accident that many enthusiasts consider it one of the most balanced muscle cars of the entire decade. Today, the finest Chevrolet Chevelle SS 396. Examples regularly exceed $100,000, while the most desirable cars continue to appreciate among collectors. 1966 Buick Wildcat GS. This car wasn't built to look fast, it was built to look important. And that's exactly why so many people underestimated the Buick Wildcat. Because at first glance, it looked like a luxurious American coupe designed for long-distance comfort. Big, elegant, and refined. But beneath that sophisticated appearance was a very different story, because Buick had decided to combine luxury and performance in a single automobile, and the result was extraordinary. Under the massive hood sat the famous 425 cubic inch Wildcat V8, an engine capable of producing around 360 horsepower, an impressive figure for 1966. And this is where things become really interesting, because all that power was installed in a car that looked much closer to a luxury automobile than a traditional muscle car. Yet, the moment the driver buried the throttle, the Wildcat revealed its true personality. It could accelerate from 0 to 60 miles per hour in approximately 6.3 seconds, and reach speeds approaching 130 miles per hour. Performance that surprised many drivers who dared to challenge it. A combination that proved extremely attractive to buyers throughout the 1960s. Today, the finest Buick Wildcat GS 425 examples typically range between $40,000 and $90,000 depending on condition and originality, and more than half a century later, it remains one of the great hidden gems of America's golden muscle car era. 1966 Dodge Charger. When this car first appeared, nobody was prepared for what it hid beneath the hood. because the Charger looked like something completely new, more elegant, more sophisticated, and far more modern than most muscle cars of its era. But Dodge had other plans, and those plans included one of the most feared engines in America, the legendary 426 Street Hemi. At first glance, the Charger immediately stood out. The fastback roofline, the aggressive front grille, and its unique profile made it one of the most striking designs of 1966. It looked fast even when parked, and for once, appearances weren't deceiving. Under the hood sat a massive 426 cubic inch Hemi V8, officially rated at 425 horsepower, an extraordinary figure for the time. And this is where things become really interesting, because the Charger combined all that power with a much more refined presence than many traditional muscle cars. It was a grand tourer, it was a luxury car, and it was also an absolute acceleration monster. It could sprint from 0 to 60 miles per hour in approximately 5.4 seconds, and exceed 140 miles per hour at the top end, figures that placed it among the fastest American automobiles of 1966. And that contrast is exactly what makes the Charger so special, because it looked like an elegant coupe built for effortless long-distance travel, yet it hid enough power to intimidate almost anything else on the road. It's no accident that the Charger became one of the most legendary names in American automotive history. The combination of styling, power, and personality was simply irresistible. Today, the finest Dodge Charger 426 Street Hemi examples can easily exceed $250,000, while the rarest cars bring far higher prices at auction. And now, I want to know something. If you could choose one of the Hemi-powered cars we've seen in this video, which one would it be? The Coronet or this spectacular Charger? Let me know in the comments. 1966 AMC Marlin. This car shouldn't be on a list of the fastest cars in America. And that's exactly what makes it so interesting. Because when most people think about performance in the 1960s, they think Chevrolet, they think Ford, they think Dodge, but they rarely think AMC. And that was a mistake, because the Marlin Typhoon hid far more than its appearance suggested. At first glance, it looked like an elegant fastback designed to stand out through style alone. The massive roofline, the unusual rear profile, and its unconventional proportions made it one of the most distinctive cars of the decade. It didn't look like a muscle car. It didn't look like a competition machine. It looked like something completely different. But under the hood, the story changed, because the Typhoon version was equipped with a 327 cubic inch V8, producing around 270 horsepower. That number may not sound spectacular compared to the monstrous Hemis and big blocks we've seen today. But here's the important detail. The Marlin was faster than most people expected. It could accelerate from 0 to 60 miles per hour in approximately 7 seconds, and reach speeds approaching 125 miles per hour. Very respectable performance for a car that rarely appears in conversations about the fast cars of the 1960s. Today, the finest AMC Marlin Typhoon examples typically range between $30,000 and $80,000, depending on condition and specification. And more than half a century later, it remains one of the most unusual, forgotten, and surprisingly quick American automobiles of 1966. 1966 Buick Riviera GS. Some cars were fast, others were elegant. Very few managed to be both at the same time. And that's exactly what made the Buick Riviera GS so special. Because while many muscle cars of 1966 were obsessed with pure acceleration, the Riviera offered something different, speed combined with sophistication. At first glance, it was one of the most attractive automobiles in America. The low-slung body, the clean lines, and the perfectly balanced proportions gave it a presence that felt more like a European Grand Tourer than an American car. It didn't look like a high-performance machine. It looked like a luxury automobile. And that was precisely the surprise. Because beneath that elegant hood sat the powerful 425 cubic inch Super Wildcat V8, an engine capable of producing around 360 horsepower. An impressive figure for the era. And this is where things become really interesting, because the Riviera delivered all that power with extraordinary smoothness. It wasn't brutal like a Hemi. It wasn't radical like a Corvette. It was fast in a different way. It could accelerate from 0 to 60 miles per hour in approximately 6.5 seconds, and reach speeds approaching 134 miles per hour. Impressive performance for an automobile that appeared to be designed primarily for comfort and style. It's no accident that today it's considered one of the most beautiful Buicks ever built. It combined design, luxury, and performance like few automobiles of its generation. Today, the finest 1966 Buick Riviera GS examples typically range between $50,000 and $120,000 depending on condition and originality. And when you look at all these automobiles together, it becomes clear that 1966 was one of the most exciting years of the entire muscle car era. Because the battle for speed no longer had any limits, the result was an extraordinary generation of automobiles. And now I want to know your opinion. Of all the cars we've seen today, which one do you think is the most impressive? The Chevrolet Corvette 427, the Dodge Charger 426 Hemi, the Ford Fairlane 427, or one of the other monsters on this list? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this journey through the fastest American cars of 1966, be sure to watch the video appearing on your screen right now, because there, we're going back 1 year to discover the fastest American cars of 1965. And trust me, the battle for speed was already completely out of control long before 1966 arrived. See you in the next video.